Right now on the National Weather Desk, severe storms break the Midwest heat wave, bringing dangerous lightning and powerful winds to several states.
It was amazing because I haven't seen that here before.
The heat now moves east, bringing with it unhealthy air. We'll show you how that air is collected and measured.
We are flying at 1,000 feet, which is much lower than most aircraft fly.
We are now watching two potential storms take shape in the Atlantic, plus a look back at Hurricane Katrina's historic path through the U.S.
On August 28th, it strengthens to a Category 5 hurricane.
Nearly 50 years later, these photos are still teaching us a lesson about lightning.
As Mother Nature was trying to tell these teenagers something, trying to tell them that lightning was about to strike.
And a look at all the ingredients needed to produce a rainbow.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. The extreme heat that baked the Midwest the last few days ended last night as a cold front triggered powerful storms across multiple states. In Michigan alone, more than 300,000 homes and businesses are without power this morning. The strong winds uprooted many trees, which then fell on homes, cars, and power lines. With no more severe weathers in the forecast there today, power companies are hoping to have power back online by tomorrow morning. The skies all across the region lit up with lightning. These pictures come from the Chicago area, but we had reports of significant lightning from Indiana, Michigan, and also Wisconsin. Reporter Josh Cavender looks at the damage in the Green Bay area.
The city of Kewaunee is picking up the pieces after high winds tore through the town on Tuesday afternoon. With wind speeds up to 60 miles per hour, trees and debris littered the roadways. Residents say it's a rarity in Kewaunee.
It was a lot of wind, and I mean the trees were just going wild. It was amazing because I haven't seen that here before.
Stacy Malott recounted to Fox 11 her experience with the storm, which landed a tree on the corner of her house.
And then I saw the tree crack, the big walnut tree, which is this one, which belongs in the backyard about 60 feet in the air.
If downed trees weren't bad enough, the storm caused power outages across the city. Kewaunee Emergency Management tells us they're working hard to resolve any outages.
I did see a lot of trees down on a lot of roads. With that, we are reminding residents to, stay off the roads in the city of Kewaunee. Let our emergency workers do their job. That way, power can be restored, at a quicker pace.
The threat for severe storms moves east today with a risk from central Ohio to New Jersey, including Columbus, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. There's also a slight risk in the Dakotas. Now, before those storms possibly arrive east, many of those same cities will bake under extremely hot weather today. 56 million Americans face heat alerts, especially in that corridor from Indianapolis to New York and south to Norfolk, Virginia. Philadelphia is under an excessive heat warning, where the heat index will rise to 105 degrees. There will also be poor air quality today in parts of the Mid-Atlantic. A code orange alert means air is unhealthy for sensitive groups due to high ozone levels. There's also a code orange alert from Cincinnati to Atlanta, along with areas in Arizona and Central California. Meteorologist Veronica Johnson shows us how this information is collected so we know which pollutants are in our air.
NASA tests air quality twice a day from space using its satellites. But recently, the NASA SART mission flew at just 1,000 feet off the ground, lower than most aircraft, to gather and measure the pollutant and gases in the air we breathe.
So we are flying at 1,000 feet, which is much lower than most aircraft fly. But yeah, we're in what we call the boundary layer, which is the layer of the atmosphere that's actually connected to the surface.
NASA's SART research project has been collecting samples of air to study pollutants and greenhouse gases.
We're also measuring the ingredients that make ozone. So ozone is not emitted. It's made from sunlight, nitrogen oxides, and hydrocarbons. And we're measuring all of those things at the same time, so we can understand not only how much ozone there is, but where it's coming from.
A lot of instruments here. Let's just get right to it. What are we looking at here?
All of the air is collected from sample probes that are underneath of the aircraft, and we pull that air in through tubes to the various instruments. These two in the front, these are Picarro gas analyzers, and they measure carbon dioxide, methane, and water, as well as carbon monoxide, so greenhouse gases and pollutant tracers. And then this is somewhat unique. This is a whole air sampler, and these are evacuated canisters. And as we fly, we fill the air into the cans, and then we ship those back to lab at UC Irvine, and they do analysis in the lab. So we have to swap this out every flight.
Bad air quality is our largest environmental threat. The American Lung Association reports nearly 4 in 10 people live in places with unhealthy levels of air pollution, and 39% of people living in the U.S. still live in places with failing grades for unhealthy levels of ozone and particulate pollution.
And when steamy summertime temperatures set in, it's important to stay hydrated. If you don't, you put yourself at risk for a painful medical problem. Liz Bonus has more about the issue and what doctors say we should know about it.
Believe it or not, it's kidney stones, a little rock that can form usually from calcium deposits as the kidney is making urine. Urologist Dr. Rebecca Rodersheimer told me.
When it's inside the kidney, it doesn't cause so much of a problem, but when it starts to move down the ureter, it can block the kidney from draining. It causes quite a bit of pain.
As for why they would be more prevalent when it's hot out?
We think because of dehydration. So in the warmer months, people are outside more, they're sweating more, and they're a little dehydrated, and that can increase the risk of kidney stones.
To reduce your odds, she suggests you drink more water, cut back on your salt intake, and she suggests you reduce your intake of colas. One study found people who drank 1 soda every day had a 23% higher chance of forming a kidney stone. As for treatments,
there's some pretty minor procedures we can do. Generally, we do something called ureteroscopy, which means we put a little camera inside the urinary tract, and we can break the stone up with a laser and pull it out.
there's also a topical shockwave therapy that can break up the stone. It is non-invasive, done from outside the body. She says some of these, however, do pass on their own, and sadly, if you are prone to kidney stones, they do tend to reoccur.
Tracking the tropics this morning. After a quiet start to hurricane season, there are now 2 areas of interest we're monitoring in the Atlantic Ocean. The newest one is southeast of Bermuda. The National Hurricane Center gives it a 10% chance of becoming a storm in the next week. We're also watching a disturbance in the central tropical Atlantic rather. It has a 20% chance of becoming a named storm. And there are still 3 tropical storms spinning in the Pacific Ocean. But for now, only Gilma is worth watching closely. It's expected to bring rain and wind to the Hawaiian Islands as early as Friday. The good news is that it's expected to continue weakening into a remnant low before it gets there. The biggest tropical story is in Japan, where nearly 1 million people have been evacuated ahead of a massive typhoon. Shanshan is packing winds of 132 miles per hour. It's expected to make landfall on an island in southern Japan. Wind damage, flash flooding, and landslides are all possible. Well, tomorrow marks 19 years since Hurricane Katrina made its final landfall in Louisiana as a massive Category 4 storm. It had previously made landfall in southern Florida as a Category 1. The damage and destruction across the Gulf Coast, especially in New Orleans, is well documented. Alabama meteorologist Riley Blackwell looks back at the development of the historic storm.
Back in 2005, Hurricane Katrina began its development, first on August 23rd as a tropical wave, eventually making its first landfall near Miami, Florida, as a fairly weak Category 1. But then as it got into the Gulf of Mexico, on August 28th, it strengthens to a Category 5 hurricane at 175 miles per hour. And just a day later, making its second landfall near Burris, Louisiana, which, if we remember, absolutely devastated New Orleans and surrounding towns. And in Alabama, we had 80-mile-per-hour winds reported in Sumter County with 2 EF0s and 2 EF1 tornadoes.
Now to space. Astronomers announced they have spotted 6 rogue worlds using the James Webb Space Telescope. Rogue worlds are cosmic objects that don't orbit stars. The celestial bodies are slightly bigger than Jupiter. The mysterious objects are still considered rare across the Milky Way. The Webb telescope found them in a star-forming nebula, or a cloud of gas and dust 960 light-years away. Another space telescope named after NASA's first female executive is set to launch in May of 2027. And if you're looking for more weather content, be sure to check us out on social media. We're on all your favorite platforms, including TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, X, and Instagram. Just search the National Weather Desk or scan the QR code on the bottom left corner of your screen. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll share tips on how to keep your garden healthy in extreme heat. And we'll help you better understand how lightning forms.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with a look at the Northeast. We have highs in the 80s and 90s for parts of the Northeast today, while parts of northern New England will stay in the 60s and 70s. Northern New York is included in that as well. The reason for that, we have a cold front moving through this morning. You may see a few scattered showers. That's going to move along. The wind picks up out of the northwest. That northwest wind is going to usher in drier conditions. You'll notice a difference, I think, by Thursday and Friday. We have low humidity, comfortable temperatures, and a lot of sunshine on the way.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Your Wednesday is going to be a scorcher. We are looking at a cold front approaching, though, to bring good chances for showers and thunderstorms, especially in the evening and overnight. We will likely see all that clearing as we move into your Thursday, but clouds will linger. Now, going into your temperatures, very hot. Upper 90s to near triple digits, except for the mountains. But we will be a lot cooler come Thursday. Highs will only reach the 80s across the coastal regions.
I'm meteorologist Charlotte Carl. Good morning. Afternoon highs are looking a bit toasty, especially for the central portion of the southeast. Triple digits up in Memphis, very close to it in Little Rock. And then we have the upper 90s in Jackson and Birmingham. Similar story up in Raleigh. Upper 80s, low 90s everywhere else. So few isolated showers and storms can be expected throughout the day Wednesday for the Florida Peninsula. Especially that also is the case for the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
This time-lapse shows a storm developing in San Antonio Tuesday afternoon, which brought needed rainfall. Near Kirksville, Missouri, the sunshine is blocked by a perfectly sized deck of stratocumulus clouds. And here's video of the deerest backyard invasion in the Nashville area. 14 deer, many of them young ones, were involved in this hot day yard takeover.
For more content like this, like the National Weather Desk on Facebook.
Well, we talked earlier about the extreme heat many people are dealing with, and our plants and lawns are suffering along with the humans that tend to them. Meteorologist Garrett Haid has more on how to keep our greenery happy when it's extremely hot outside.
There are some things you can do to help your lawn through the hot and dry conditions.
I mean, if you don't have to cut your lawn when it's really, really hot, if it's not really tall, then leave it go for a day or so if you can do that. Well, the taller you can cut it, the better off it is, so it keeps the ground cooler. So we have our guys cutting stuff right now at 4 inches, so when it gets hot, it's better for the turf.
Now, when it comes to watering, the Iowa State Extension says the way that your lawn looks is entirely up to you. If you're going for green, keep watering your lawn, but do make sure to continue watering it a little bit later into the day so your lawn can absorb that water. Otherwise, most of that will just evaporate away. However, experts do say turf grasses such as Kentucky bluegrass can survive going dormant for 4 to 6 weeks without regular rainfall or irrigation and should get their color back once conditions aren't so dry.
And when it comes to lawns, weeds can often be a problem. In Tacoma, Washington, one school has found a unique way to deal with weeds at their stadium. Denise Whitaker shows us more about the herd or a trip of goats that's taken the place of lawnmowers.
They don't eat everything. No, so that's a common misconception. They're a browsing animal. So how I describe it is like when we eat steak, we eat the meat, leave the bones. Goats are going to do the same thing.
Which is one of the reasons Tacoma Public Schools chose goats as their new groundskeepers.
Ultimately, they'll keep the hillside intact, they'll get the brush down, and we don't have to bring in trucks and trailers.
This is probably got to be my biggest to date, definitely in the nastiest terrain.
Billings thinks he's got about 50 goats here.
When I'm loading them, it's quite the process. So sometimes you get goats that don't want to load.
They cut trails through the blackberries and thick areas to give the goats easy access.
It's been about 10 to 15 years since something was done on this hillside as far as managing the brush.
Really getting to know these goats today. This is Vincent Van Goat. This is Snowflake over here, and Betty is right in front of me. Yes, Eric names his goats.
You forget the younger ones' names, but I mean, generally speaking, when they're around long enough, you start to remember everybody.
That's Petunia responding to her baby's calls, who was looking to nurse.
It's a unique experience for our community to have animals on site doing a job for us.
All of that oogling doesn't even faze these goats. They are all about Billings, following him down the hillside to those blackberries.
Now to northeast Wisconsin, where bird watchers had their eyes fixed on the skies. Eric Peterson tagged along on one of their excursions as they track the migration of a species they say is in decline.
As daylight begins to fade over the parking lot at Dr. Rosa Minoka Hill School in Green Bay, birders, including Matt Welter, gather to gaze.
I've been watching chimney swifts for 24 years now, and I just really enjoy it. Usually at about sunset like this, you can hear the chimney swifts twittering, and this year, you really had to strain to hear them.
A couple of weeks ago, we had about 30 people out in the community monitoring chimneys, looking for chimney swifts who roost there at night. And at this particular chimney that we're at right now, we had almost 200 swifts that went in at night, which is their behavior. That's what they do when they go to sleep for the night. And tonight, we've seen about 4 so far and a couple of others flying by. So that means they have moved further south.
Wisconsin Chimney Swift Working Group co-chair Nancy Naback says migration may be winding down here, but she says declining food sources like insects and fewer chimneys are having an impact on the birds.
I think it's 67% of the swifts in North America have declined in the past 50 years. Well, so that's a huge number in a really short amount of time.
Naback says whenever possible, people should keep their chimneys uncapped, and that's not all.
Plant native gardens for positive insects, which again is a food source for the chimney swift.
Meanwhile, swift counting continues. Matt Welter says Wednesday night's total was 5.
It's like a magical thing that happens every year. Unfortunately, this year wasn't quite so magical.
49 years ago last week, a photo was taken in Sequoia National Park moments before disaster. Meteorologist Chris Kuiper looks back at the photo and shows us how it should have been a warning that a lightning strike was imminent.
49 years ago on this date, August 20, 1975, these pictures were taken up at Sequoia National Park, up at Morrill Rock, and what looked to be a fun afternoon of hiking and such turned out to be a tragic afternoon as Mother Nature was trying to tell these teenagers something, trying to tell them that lightning was about to strike. It did strike these 2 boys here. Fortunately, they did survive, but another gentleman nearby did not. Let's take a look at what happened on that tragic afternoon up there at Morrill Rock. Now, what's going on with the thunderstorm? Thunderstorms are very active and very violent, and eventually, after a while, you get a separation of the negative ions and the positive ions in the cloud there. The negative ions surge to the bottom of the cloud, and that's what was going on right then when that picture was taken. You have all the negative ions at the bottom of the cloud. The positive ions within the trees, the ground, you and me, starts to surge back up, trying to meet these ions at the bottom of the cloud here, and it's flowing through the hair, causing the hair to rise there. After a little while, you get so much of the negative ions at the bottom of the cloud, they surge down to the ground. That's your initial lightning stroke there. That's called a stepped leader. We don't see that, though, because that's the negative energy. The positive energy for the ground surges back up into the cloud there on the same path, and that's when it flickers back and forth like that. That's what we actually see here. That happens very quickly. Again, that's called the stepped leader, surging down to the ground and comes back up. You see it flickering back and forth there a couple times. It can happen 3, 4, 5 times as you exchange the positive ions and the negative ions between the cloud and the ground there. So, and this whole process happens in less than a second for the most part, milliseconds in most cases. So if you're ever out and about doing some hiking and you feel your hair starting to stand on end, boy, find shelter immediately because lightning is trying to strike somewhere close by.
The umbrella that you see here is being carried in the sky by a dust devil. The umbrella is nearly 9 feet tall. So what are dust devils? How do they form? How strong are they? We find out from meteorologist Kit Alexander.
Check out this cool video of a dust devil that formed in Shady Valley, Tennessee. Honestly,
this is a perfect example. Let's talk about some of the science of dust devils and how they form. First, it forms when the ground is heated unevenly. The ground heats up faster than surrounding areas, and this hotter, less dense air will rise vertically, creating an area of low pressure which causes the air to rush in and fill the void. Cooler air circulates. When air conditions are just right, though, the updraft may begin to rotate, and here we have it. It's the perfect example of a dust devil.
Time now for a short break, but first we soar over Renard Island in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Well, a very good Wednesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. Still hot and steamy across the southern part of the Midwest with highs in the 90s and some high humidity there. As we continue into the next couple of days, scattered showers and thunderstorms slowly working their way across the Midwest from west to east, and that'll be over towards the Great Lakes by the time that we get to Friday. But a lot of sunshine out across the plains and temperatures cooling down a little bit behind that rain for Friday.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. We're starting out into the 70s for the most part, but really nice and cool this morning. Amarillo coming in at 69 degrees. The only thing we've got on the map is just a weak trough line here. Lots of scattered showers anticipated out for Texas, Louisiana, and all the way up in Oklahoma. Temperature's going to be summer-like, but not hot. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. That's a look at your regional weather.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson, and here's what's happening across the West. We've got the heat into the Four Corners, but to the Pacific Northwest, temperatures just starting to work their way back up to normal. A nice warming trend going on, but this cold front, as it moved through, it's bringing strong gusty winds, and we could even get some snow in the North Rockies above 5,000 feet. Otherwise, it's monsoonal moisture for showers and thunderstorms for parts of Arizona and New Mexico. That's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Rainbows are fairly common. Both sun and rain are needed for them to form, but that's not all. Meteorologist Emily Santum explains the rest.
One, in order to see a rainbow, the viewer must be between the sun and the rain as typical, and actually time of day matters too. The sun needs to be at a 42-degree angle above the horizon. It actually happens once again a few hours between sunrise and sunset. Like I said, the time of the day does matter. Now the sun's rays enter the raindrop and light actually refracts out towards the viewer, hence why you need to be between the rain and the sun. Larger drops create brighter colors. Here's one rainbow, and this one's very, very faint, but it is here. You can see it a little bit down on the bottom of your screen. Now the primary rainbow is exactly what it's called, the primary. And when you see a double rainbow, that second rainbow is called the secondary rainbow. And those colors are actually reversed, so the red comes first too. Now this happens when the light is reflected to form the primary rainbow, but it's actually reflected into a different direction. Secondary rainbows too are about at that 50-degree angle, even though the primary is at the 42-degree angle.
Looking for more great weather content? Be sure to check us out on social media. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. Make it a great Wednesday. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.